allowed through permitted development rights, or because of changes the government is making to use classes and so forth. So the greater the number of developments that are just waved through without requiring even planning consent, the less the incentive for developers to engage with local communities.
So, do you think the neighborhood forums activities and then the close relationship with the planning officers can impact on the planning application decisions?
Yes. Not because they rely on individual decisions from the neighbourhood forum, but because in those contacts we're able to inform the planners about the neighbourhood plan and what neighbourhood plan policies are relevant, and that in turn helps the planners in making their decisions.
So how do you think about neighbourhood plan impacts, or neighbourhood plan itself, the impact on the planning application and decisions, comparing to when there was no neighbourhood plan?
Well, as I said, I can't give you the exact percentage, but there is a significant percentage of planning applications that specifically mention in the officer's report or in the planning decision, specifically mention individual policies in the neighbourhood plan. But that confirms to us that our neighbourhood plan has been quite effective and is influencing planning decisions. Because if it weren't influencing planning decisions would not reference the neighbourhood plan.
So, yes, according to the Planning Watch, there are marks whether the neighbourhood plan is taken into account or not. Yes, I think it's a very informative web page.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can see that from the Planning Watch section of our website, which you may have looked at.
Yes, right there. It's very organized and very informative. Yes. The neighbourhood plan was cited or not.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you think that.
Yeah. Do you think the neighbourhood plan is useful to achieve the aim and objectives of Hampstead area?
Sorry, do I think the neighbourhood plan is
useful to achieve the aim and objectives of Hampstead area? In the light of your intention.
It is only partially effective, and it's only partially effective for two reasons. Firstly, it is bound by, as I said, conformity with the national planning policy, all these other plans. So that means that it cannot truly reflect the wishes of local people in all respects. So to that extent, it is not fully able to achieve the desires of local people. All it can do is reflect the wishes of local people that don't conflict with the national planning policy framework, the London plan and the local plan.
Yeah.
So all of the things that local people want that do conflict with the national planning policy framework, the London plan and the local plan are not in the neighbourhood plan. So by definition, the neighbourhood plan cannot fully reflect the wishes of local people. Secondly, the neighbourhood plan is only about land use. Now, land use is obviously very important, but there is another area that affects greatly people's quality of life. And that is the environment of their streets and their public realm, traffic, the walkability of their streets. None of that is... all of those areas are areas that the neighbourhood plan can only influence so far as it's about land use. But when it comes to decisions made by the local authority on where to put cycle lanes, parking arrangements, traffic on roads, pedestrian crossings, street benches, street clutter and signs, greening of streets, low traffic neighbourhoods, banning of cars, closing off of streets, all of those things, and pollution, which is of course a major thing. None of those things can be directly influenced by the neighbourhood plan, because the neighbourhood plan only relates to developments made on land near to public roads, but doesn't actually apply to the streets themselves. So many issues locally that affect people's quality of life relate to traffic and transport matters, and there is a gap there because there isn't anything equivalent to the neighbourhood plan that reflects the wishes of the local community for traffic and transport. There's nothing there. So that means that there isn't any way of expressing local community desires, and that means that the neighbourhood plan cannot fully reflect the wishes of the local community for their local environment. Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand. For example, there was one application regarding the former police station. That application is refused, and the appeal is dismissed due to the air pollution resulting from the movement, and then the traffic jam, the traffic confusion. Yes, so
that's right. I'm just having a look here to see if I can share a picture with you. Yeah, here it is. I'm just going to see if I can share this. I'm not very good on sharing with Zoom, so who knows what will happen, but we'll have a go. So I don't know whether you can see that. But on the right-hand side, you've got the structure of land use development, which is controlled by the Town and Country Planning Act and the Localism Act of 2011. And what you see there, although it's painful, is something that's highly structured. So there's the London plan, which the mayor controls, then the local plan, and then the neighbourhood plan. And there's a structured process. And planning applications are assessed in line with each of those plans. And there is a neighbourhood layer where the local community can express its wishes through the neighbourhood plan. Not ideal, but it can express its wishes through that plan. But if you now look at the left of the diagram, you can see that the way in which transport planning is determined. So there is a different set of acts, and you have the Mayor's transport strategy, and then you have Camden Council have their transport strategy, which is quite vague, and then you have there's nothing at neighbourhood level. So you have lots of piecemeal projects which are developed by Camden, which covers a very wide area, implemented in local neighbourhoods, but there's nothing at neighbourhood level that guides Camden's transport planners in order to help them understand what would be appropriate for a specific neighbourhood and what the wishes of the local community are. So quite often, Camden's the transport planners are in a difficult position because they develop schemes which are then opposed by the local community because the local community feel that they weren't consulted or that they're not appropriate for their area. And you see those little bags of money coming down. Well, basically, a lot of the money for transport planning is held by Transport for London. So it's really a question of following the money. So if Transport for London tells Camden Council, we'll give you a bit of money if you go and do this, Camden Council say, well, thank you very much, we'll take the money and we'll go and do what you want us to do. Then, of course, local people object because they say we weren't consulted, this is not right for our area, and so forth. So it's a much less structured process, and there's nothing at the neighbourhood level